Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tobat. I'd like to give a shout out to Brandon Govrin for suggesting this video. Thank you, Brandon, for being an awesome fan. This was not an easy video to make because I don't watch a lot of modern cartoons. But nobody should be afraid to step out of their comfort zone once in a while. All cartoons on this list were made in the last 10 years. Like in the 10 weirdest cartoons from the 80s video, when I say weird, I don't necessarily mean bad. So, without further ado, let's begin. Number 10. Tarzan and Jane. I've been a fan of Tarzan for many years. I grew up watching the old movies, as well as the Disney movie. More recently, I began to read the original novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs. So when Netflix announced they were making a new Tarzan cartoon, I got really excited. How was Tarzan and Jane? Bad. And weird. I would go as far as to say it's the weirdest interpretation of Tarzan I've ever seen. It's set in modern times. In this version, Tarzan's parents are killed in a plane crash when he was just a baby. He is then found by an ape named Kala. Doesn't seem bad at first. Then Kala takes Tarzan to a shaman who performs a ceremony that grants him animal superpowers. Then he gives Tarzan back to Kala to raise. The makers of this show do not understand the character. Look, I'm fine with creators putting their own interpretation on classic characters. The thing is, in order for any new interpretation to work, you have to understand that there are some changes you can't make about a character. Tarzan spent his early years away from humans because there weren't any around to raise him. If there were, there would be no reason for him to be raised by Kala. Also, like Batman, Tarzan has no superpowers. He may be faster and stronger than most people, but that's because he was raised in the jungle. My suggestion for anyone looking for a good Tarzan cartoon to watch: check out Disney's Legend of Tarzan or Filmation's Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. Number 9. Over the Garden Wall. I am about to say something that will make me unpopular. Over the Garden Wall is not a very good cartoon. A lot of people praised this miniseries, so I went in thinking it would be great. Instead, it was a weird mess. It revolves around two half-brothers named Wirt and Greg. They got lost in the forest and are trying to find their way home. A lot of strange things happen along the way. Most of the time, I felt as lost as the boys when watching this cartoon. Greg, the little brother, has this frog that he's always thinking up different names for. It's a strange run-on gag that I never found funny. Over the Garden Wall's weirdness mostly lies in its fairy tale atmosphere, which is why I placed it low on the list. Number 8. Gravity Falls. Twins Dipper and Mabel Pines are sent to a town called Gravity Falls to spend the summer with their great Uncle Stan, or Grunkle Stan. Grunkle Stan runs a tourist trap called the Mystery Shack. The best way to describe it is to imagine the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, where everything's fake. His employees include Seuss, the dumb repairman, and Wendy, who Dipper has a crush on. During their stay, Dipper and Mabel learn that Gravity Falls is no ordinary town. They encounter supernatural creatures that are documented in a journal Dipper found. You know how I said in the intro that when I say weird, I don't necessarily mean bad? Gravity Falls is by no means bad. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's one of the greatest cartoons ever made. It's funny, intense, and heartwarming. I couldn't stop watching Gravity Falls. The show has a mystery going on, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. Maybe later I'll do a video about this show, but for right now, all you have to know is it's a great cartoon. Sure, Gravity Falls is weird, but sometimes weird can be a good thing. Number 7. The Epic Tales of Captain Underpants. Based on the popular books, the cartoon follows the adventures of George and Harold, good friends who often get into trouble with their mean old principal, Mr. Krupp. So one day, they decide to hypnotize him into thinking he's Captain Underpants, a comic book character they created. Now every time Mr. Krupp hears someone snap their fingers, he becomes Captain Underpants. He only turns back to normal when he gets his face wet. At Jerome Horwitz Elementary School, the boys must deal with mad scientists, aliens, clones, robots, monsters, and time travel. The Epic Tales of Captain Underpants does a great job at capturing the humor and insanity of the books. Sure, it's weird, but in this case, that's a good thing. Number 6. Green Eggs and Ham. Who came up with the idea of turning a 50-word children's book into an animated series? That alone qualifies Green Eggs and Ham for a spot on the list. The book was just about Sam I Am trying to get someone to try green eggs and ham. Then it follows a series of crazy events. If anything, Green Eggs and Ham should only work as a short, which is what Dr. Seuss did back in the 70s. Turning the book into an action buddy series seems like not only a weird idea, but a bad one. Yet for some reason, it works. That's probably the weirdest thing about this cartoon. There is absolutely no reason this cartoon should work, but it does. If you want to hear my full opinion on Green Eggs and Ham, check out my video, Netflix's Green Eggs and Ham is surprisingly good. Number 5. Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let me start off by giving my opinion of the other cartoons. 1987, childhood favorite. It's goofy but fun. 2003, perhaps the best serious version of the Turtles since the first movie. 2012, I only saw 4 episodes, but it's a great hybrid of the previous cartoons, yet it manages to be its own thing. The only reason why I couldn't get into this cartoon was because Rob Paulsen was voicing Donatello. To me, he's Raphael. With that out of the way, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a pretty weird concept. I mean, just think about the title. The Turtles have become a huge part of pop culture. We tend to forget that. Then we get cartoons like Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which reminds us how weird it is. The animation is beautiful, and the fight scenes are great, but the writers made some weird decisions with the characters. Raphael is the leader, Splinter is a lazy slob, April is black, and all 4 turtles behave like goofy caricatures of the 80s cartoon from Turtles Forever. It's hard to tell them apart. Sure, they have their own distinct look, distinct color masks, and different weapons, but most of the time they felt like the same character. The 80s cartoon may have been silly, but it still gave each turtle his own distinct personality. I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but this cartoon is too weird for me. Number 4. Regular show. This was one weird cartoon. It revolves around two friends, a blue jay named Mordecai and a raccoon named Rigby. They work as groundskeepers at this park. Their boss is a gumball machine, their manager is a lollipop, and their co-worker is a Yeti. A typical episode would have Mordecai and Rigby doing something ordinary, like trying to get a chair, only to have something crazy happen. Regular show is as random as Super Ted. Number 3. Fishhooks. They made a cartoon about fishhooks. They actually made a cartoon about fish hooks. Okay, technically the characters are supposed to be fish, but they don't look like fish. They look like fish hooks. I don't know why they look like that, if they're supposed to be fish, but okay, let me explain this cartoon. Fish hooks is about these fish who live in an aquarium at a pet store. They go to school. Get it? School of fish. Ha ha. And it follows their daily lives. It's basically a typical high school cartoon. Only it's about fish hooks. Or a fish who looks like fish hooks. What? I'm sorry I keep dwelling on that, but that really bothered me. Number 2. Big Mouth. I'll give this cartoon credit for this. They really do have big mouths. The characters look more like fish than people, but maybe that's because I still got fish hooks on my mind. Big Mouth revolves around a bunch of 7th graders who are going through puberty. There are also these monsters that are supposed to represent teenage hormones. Big Mouth is not only weird, it made me feel uncomfortable watching it. Its weirdness mostly lies in the character designs and those hormone monsters. Big Mouth is mostly about sex, and that's basically it. Look, I know the teen years are an awkward time, and discovering sex is a part of it. I'm fine with shows discussing this topic, as long as it's done right. Especially if that's not what the whole show is about. Big Mouth feels like it's obsessed with sex, and I gotta say, I didn't like it one bit. Number 1. Bojack Horseman. Back in the 90s, there was a popular sitcom called Horsin' Around. It's centered around an anamorphic horse who has to raise 3 human kids. The show's star, Bojack Horseman, became a big celebrity. Like so many celebrities, once the show ended, Bojack's star faded. Now he's a bitter alcoholic who struggles with depression. On the surface, Bojack Horseman seems like a weird cartoon where animals and people live together. But it deals with a lot of topics, like having and losing fame, depression, alcoholism, trauma, and self-destructive behavior in a serious way. Not the first time I've seen a show that looks weird deal with serious topics. I grew up with dinosaurs, but Bojack Horseman is more recent, and in a way, weirder than dinosaurs. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.